Michael Holt slash Mr. Terrific vibe from him, and it's really good. And we do meet members of the alien conspiracy, and these aliens seem bent on merging aliens with resurrected Victorian era characters, whether real or fictional. John Wilkes Booth appears to be something of a wild card. He's actually been transformed into a werewolf. We see Van Helsing showing up, and of course, he's got reasons to go after both Booth and President Lincoln. So now, getting you caught up with that, getting back to the change from the 0 issue to the 1 issue, and looking back on it, you can see that I wouldn't say that the 0 issue was an experimental issue, but clearly after the 0 issue, Sam and Matt must have gotten together and said, yeah, there are different things we want to try here, whether it be in terms of the writing, dialogue, or the art. Certainly from a visual perspective, you can see changes in the character models. I'd say you see that the most in terms of Sherlock Holmes' visual presentation, going from the 0 to the 1 issue. And so what's really neat is that recently Sam and Matt got together and decided to rewrite and redraw issue number 0 so that there's a greater sense of continuity between the 0 and the 1 issue. And certainly there's nothing wrong with the original 0 issue. I mean, you see this in a number of titles where there's this progression, and at some points in certain comics, you say, oh, wow, I can see a real shift there in terms of the writing or in terms of the art, or both. And that's without a change in the creative team. It's just a natural evolution of sorts. But it's really neat to see here in this redone version what Sam and Matt have done. From a writing perspective, a highlight for me is this new look at the first meeting between Sherlock Holmes and Madame Curie. And their dialogue, their characterization comes off as very accurate, very true to the real Mary Curie, as well as the written presentation of Sherlock Holmes. It feels very true to both of those characters. And it's really neat to see their first meeting and how they interact with each other and how there's that misunderstanding between the two before they both come together and realize that they are bound to form this relationship of mutual trust and great respect. Of course, complementing Sam's writing is Matt's great artwork. Matt Tavares is a very versatile artist. He can employ multiple art styles. It's really impressive to see how he changed his art here for this redone version. So it really lines up with the art that you see in issues 1 and 2. Not only changes the character models, but in terms of perspective, camera angles, the art is just very dynamic. It's black and white, at least the copy which Sam sent to me digitally. But it's one of those stories where you really don't need the color to appreciate the art. Yeah, I'd love to see a colorized version of this, but to see Matt's artwork in black and white and admire the pencils and the inks, yes, please. Really great stuff. And my understanding is that they're going to release the 0 issue, the Redux version, at a Coldwater festival later this summer. So I've got to make sure to post a link to that somewhere on the Comics and History Facebook page. So 2 great works from Sam Noir, and his very talented colleagues on art. Now to look at a couple of works from Jason Liu. I love Jason Liu. He's a great talent, a great Toronto-based artist and writer. You just get such a sense of enjoyment from reading his stories, and never is that more clear than in his ongoing series, The Pitiful Human Lizard, which sadly has ended its run. And I thought that something might be up when I was going to the comic book store a year or more ago, and I was looking for new issues of Pitiful Human Lizard, which, of course, is being published by Chapt, and they just weren't there. And I was asking the retailers, like, hey, when are you getting in the next issue? And they basically just shrugged and said, we don't know. I'm not a paid professional here as a podcaster. I'm not a licensed journalist, but still, I don't want to give in to too much idle speculation. But I wonder if there was some sort of issue going on with Chapter House and the release of this title. But it was telling to me when I saw new pages of Pitiful Human Lizard popping up on Facebook. And evidently the transition was made from Chapter House to web-based comic book. And then I saw different posts on Facebook saying that Pitiful Human Lizard was coming to a close. The story is titled Some Heart Left, and it really pulled at my heart when I saw the announcement that this was going to be the final issue of the Pitiful Human Lizard, at least for some time. I was just rereading one interview with Jason where he stated that you might see Lucas Barrett, aka the Pitiful Human Lizard, appear in the background somewhere, but this is the last standalone issue of Pitiful Human Lizard for a while. And so, of course, I was already very motivated to go to the Toronto Comics Art Festival this past May, but knowing that the final issue of Pitiful Human Lizard was going to be there, and to have a chance to meet Jason and talk with him again, that was just icing on the cake. And so I did get to meet Jason at TCAF, and even though he sketched things for Victoria in the past, this was the first time that I got to introduce my little girl to Jason, and no surprise, Victoria took quite a shine to Jason, really enjoyed chatting with him in her Swedish chef way of talking. And so I got to speak with Jason, and I asked him, would the lizard be appearing in any future Chapter House publications? And I pretty well knew the answer before he gave it to me, but I still had to ask, and Jason said no. And so it does make me wonder how exactly Barrett's departure from the Chapterverse is going to be handled, if at all. I'm kind of hoping that, maybe there's one Jason-approved reference to the lizard doing his best at street level to help people while the Borealis invasion of the Chapterverse is going on. But this is a really sweet issue and a wonderful send-off issue, too. It's a really nice way of getting people back up to speed on what's been going on with Lucas Barrett in his life as Lucas and in his life as the Pitiful Human Lizard. And evidently, things have changed since the last time I read this book. There's been a career change for Lucas. He's no longer stuck in an office cubicle, but his new day job, or maybe day and night job, presents an interesting set of challenges, both to his life as Lucas, as well as to his superhero career. We see that as a lizard, he's still doing his able best to try to overcome certain fears, certain feelings of apprehension, and while that pitiful tag applies to his attempts at points, the one thing which shines through in this final issue is that Lucas has a heart of gold, and he has the true spirit of a hero. And indeed, if he had Captain America's athleticism, if he was trained to the peak of human perfection like Batman, he would be a formidable fighting force. But that's not who Lucas is. The nice thing is that, things can get him down. He's not somebody who gives up. He's aware of who he is, and he wants to do better, and he tries to do better. And that carries throughout this issue, which is told in an interesting way. It's more a series of vignettes, letting us see different perspectives on Lucas, as well as his supporting cast. There's some nice moments between Lucas and his parents. And while they're not exactly like Ma and Pa Kent, for those who miss Ma and Pa Kent in the current DC Comics reality, Lucas' mom and dad, they come across as wonderful parents who love their son more than anything in the world, and care about him deeply, while at the same time respecting what he's trying to do as a costume crime fighter. We also catch up with Barb, aka Lady Accident. We even see Lucas' friend Kenneth, aka the Majestic Rat. We get to see where things are going in Kenny's personal life. We get an extended look at Mother Wonder, which is really neat. She's a great supporting character, and she'd make for an interesting character in her own title too, and that she doesn't have that glamorous cheesecake superheroine look, but she is a fighter and a warrior and a hero through and through, and it's wonderful seeing this character who not only fights for the people on Earth, but also in space, but she's also a wife and a devoted mother, and that's really neat. It's really neat to see what she's been up to in recent times. And then I really love how this book comes together. There's a really metatextual feel throughout this book. I think Jason got the sense that there were a lot of people who were, losing track with Pitiful Human Lizard because issues of the title weren't coming out on time. It was difficult for people to keep up with that. And so he does a really neat job here in the story of showing the characters coming back and catching up with each other. And I think the really beautiful thing about this issue is that, yes, it is the final issue of Pitiful Human Lizard for a while, but it's not really the end. Life will go on. Nobody's dying. Nobody's been stripped of their powers. Nobody's hanging up their cape. Well, maybe one character has decided to bring their superhero career to a close, but it's by their choice. And it's because they see something greater out there for them that they want to pursue. And how often do you see that in comic books? Very often. When a character steps away from their career as a superhero, it's not by choice, they're forced. Very often they die. It's just really nice that everybody comes back together in the end to get caught up. And after you close this book, hey, they're going to keep catching up with each other, and chances are they're going to redouble their efforts to stay in touch with each other. So it's The Pitiful Human